What's happening, people? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're keeping well. In today's video we're talking all about the striker position at Spurs, and I asked lots of different wonderful YouTubers, some from Spurs and some supporting other clubs, what they think, whether Spurs should spend big on that position and who Spurs should go for on Daniel Levy. So do stay tuned to the very end. That's enough of me waffling. Now time to hand over to the wonderful YouTubers, but I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If you do smash that subscribe button.
Hello, it's Marlon from Spurs Kings TV, and this is a video for Scarfy, and he's asked me what striker should Spurs go out and sign, should they spend big on that position, why and why not? I think believe Spurs should go out and sign a striker. Look, I'm still in the mindset of we need a new front three. That includes the Son backing up of Son or whatever you want to call it, but Son is Son's getting on now. And you could tell last year, there was, after being at the Asian Cup, he looked knackered. And we need a good enough replacement to come in, and Werner is not that. So we need to go build a new front three. Look, we've been linked with Eze. Whether that comes through or not, that is another question. I'm still going to be shouting, I believe we should go get Brian Nguemo from Brentford on the right. I think he'd be perfect. But as for the striker. Now, this is a position that we could either spend big, go hard or go home, as they say, or we could do it, with a bit of class. Does that striker need to score 20 odd goals a season? It would be nice. But if we go out and get a striker that's going to score 15 to 20 and stay fit, that's the other point, because Richarlison started to hit form last year. But again, he's good enough to come in because he's apparently going to be staying. So I'm looking at going. There is a few striker options out there, whether it's Toney, Jimenez, there's a couple of other guys we've been linked with as well. So we have to be really, really careful in this position. And the problem that this person's going to have, they're going to be compared to Harry Kane. Right? There's not a Harry Kane out there. And if there is, his name is Harry Kane. We're not going to get a striker like that. We've obviously got Dane Scarlett as well in the youth policy. So, if we had Richarlison, Dane Scarlett and one other, I possibly would be happy. If it was Toney, for me, after watching that penalty over the weekend, he's ice cold. And possibly someone we could need, or someone who's going to get in behind. We've got to really, really, really be careful, but we can't go cheap in this position either. It needs to be a certain bracket, and we need someone who's going to put the ball in the back of the net. And a lot of the goals that they will score will come in from the wings, so it just needs to be someone who's ideally going to get behind the lines or be able to hold it up. One of the two, and I think that's going to be key to this. I think Ange wants someone who can hold it up. I'm not going to give a name, but we do need to spend wisely in this position. Not necessarily big, just wisely. And then hopefully that will help us into next season. And if Richarlison is staying, at least you've got two options for cups, leagues, and if Richarlison comes in or the other guy comes in, it doesn't matter in what competition, you've realistically got two strikers that can play.
So I think Spurs should sign a striker and a winger. Now, I don't know how much budget they've got left. They've been linked to Desiree Doué, a fantastic player, by the way. I suggested like 2 months ago Spurs should sign him. They've been linked to a few wingers, and I think if they can get a good striker and a good winger in, that would be perfect for Spurs, and maybe a little bit more depth in midfield and at the back. I would say, being realistic, I think their budget for a striker is probably going to be around £50 million. I don't know, Daniel Levy can be a bit tight. I think Ivan Toney would be the perfect striker for Spurs because he can do elements of what Kane did, drop deep, facilitate play. He does well in the graveyard shift, but he is a clinical Premier League scorer. And with his season at Brentford last year, maybe they will lower the fee for him. I think that's probably the obvious one. Obviously, Benjamin Sesko is one I would have recommended, but that's not going to happen. And the striker market is very overpriced at the moment. So if you could get Ivan Toney on a cut price deal, I think that is a really good option out there. There's obviously a couple other names out there, but they're not Premier League proven. I think that can be a massive risk. If you could maybe get Ivan Toney, but for less than 50 million, and then you have the funds to go for a winger, I think that would completely transform your attack. I also think his ability to drop deep and facilitate play would suit Son, who likes to run ahead and be a bit of a goal scorer.
So who should Spurs sign as a striker in the upcoming transfer window? It's a really good question. And for me, the obvious option is the right option here, and that is Ivan Toney. And I want to explain why that is. One thing that we've really struggled with this season, which is important as scoring goals, is keeping goals out, particularly from set pieces in the last season, I should say. And I think one of the reasons we conceded so many soft goals is we don't have that kind of player in the box who's really strong and can offer a bit more dominance and throw their weight around. We saw the need for someone to, you know, really put a marker on and protect Vicario at points last season, and we struggled to find that person. Since Harry Kane was sold, I don't think any of us really quite realised how important he was for us defensively on set pieces until he was gone. And I think Ivan Toney is someone who can fill that void. But also the amount of players we've been signing lately have typically been young, under 21 type signings who are going to need to gather experience over time with us. And I think we need to get the balance right and bring some ready-made experience into the side. And I think, again, Toney is someone, we know what we're getting with that. And what we're getting is a very clever, hard-working, strong striker who's very intelligent, can take penalties really well. So that's a nice kind of little added bonus there as well for him. But also he complements well the type of wingers we seem to be signing, which are direct, quick wingers who don't necessarily really beat their man one-on-one, but for pace and finishing, you know, Brennan Johnson is a very good player. And I think Toney would complement these guys. He would take the ball on himself in the forward third of the pitch, and he would lay the ball out to these players so they can make direct runs onto the ball and in the box and with a low cross and get a good finish. And then he's there for that aerial dominance himself as well. But he's also, of course, he's brilliant with his feet. So I think Toney ticks all the boxes really. You wouldn't get a return on your signing because of his age, and he'd want a big 4 or 5 year contract, I imagine. But yeah, he's what we need now. I think he's the right fit at the right time. I will just add the other reason I think he'd thrive at Spurs is simply because his ego, right? He loves being the main man. He relishes under it, and I think if us or Arsenal signed him, which other club does, he would have a point to prove. He'd say, look, I'm here to put a marker down and show you what I'm made of as the main man at a big football club. And I hope it's us that signs him. Up the Spurs.
Hey Harry, what's up? So you asked me my opinion on getting a striker and what striker I think we should get and whether we prioritise getting a striker. So I've said this before previously, I do genuinely feel like we do need a striker. I feel like that is definitely a position that we need to fill. I wouldn't say it's a priority, definitely not. However, it's something that we definitely need to look at. Obviously, Kane leaving has left a massive dent. Well, I wouldn't say massive, but like a dent in our team. It did affect us, and you can tell it has. And in terms of who I would bring in, it's a bit of a sticky one. Now, I've said this before, Ivan Toney, he's a quality guy to bring in. However, I don't think he'll come. I don't know if you saw an interview he done, I think it was last year, and he was asked what other team he would play for. I'm pretty sure he said Arsenal, and I think he's an Arsenal fan. And I feel like him having that sort of an opinion, that might then just, you know, sway his decision. He won't come to us kind of thing, unless there's some magical thing that happens that brings him to our club. However, don't think so. I'm not too sure on what other kind of names that comes to mind, but like I said, I don't think it's a priority in terms of that's the first thing that we should be out like going for. I genuinely feel like we need to look at our defence and we need to fill those positions and stuff like that. Have I been happy with how this window has gone so far? We've got Archie Gray. We still need to, you know, work on, you know, getting more players in and stuff. We've got obviously time, but time's ticking. It's going to take a while. We've been linked to so many different players, and at the moment, I'm just not listening to it. I'm pushing it aside.
Hey guys, I'm recording for Harry. Yeah, so he asked what striker should Tottenham buy if I had any, and I personally think that we should buy Santiago Jimenez. I think he is a really good striker. I've seen a couple of his videos and his compilations of himself, and he's really good. He's young. I think he's around like 22, 23, I think, maybe younger than that. He obviously plays for Feyenoord. I think he scored about maybe 15, 20 goals last season in the Eredivisie. I don't know. Not too sure about that, but I think he's a really good striker to have. He's pretty tall. I think he's like 6 foot, 6'1", so not too tall, obviously, but he's tall. I think he's physically strong also. I think he just has the attributes that would fit that would fit Ange's system, and that would probably cost around 60, 70 mil. So yeah, if we don't get him, I personally think we don't have to buy a striker. Maybe buy a young striker. I think just give Valise a chance also. But I personally think that Richarlison can do it. I really believe in Richarlison. Obviously, he had that kind of purple patch last season where he scored like 9 goals in 10 games. But I really believe in Richarlison, and Valise obviously coming back from loan. I think when the moments he got, I think he was pretty decent. And yeah, I think Valise also deserves a chance, especially in like Europa League. And also we have youngsters like Dane Scarlett, Troy Parrott, Mikey Moore, Will Langshear, so they'll obviously get their chance. But if we don't sign a striker, I think that we should just rely on our youth and rely on our whatever we have already, because I think it's a really good foundation what we have. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm Tottenham boy, and yeah, peace.
Hey everyone, this is Harry from Spurs TV, back with a video for Harry. So he's asked me which striker I'd like to sign this summer. Bear in mind the Euros is finishing in just like a couple of days, and how much also we should spend on a striker. So I guess I'll probably be the most controversial one that he's going to ask, but yeah, here we go. Now my ideal striker is Alexander Isak. And I'd drop 150 million on him or more, because for me, the striker position is actually the most important position in this whole system. I know a lot of people have controversially said it's one of the lesser importance, but there's 2 big reasons here. One, as much as I like Richarlison, he's not going to be the number 9 that's going to lead us to glory, I don't think. I think as a squad player or in certain games, he's very useful, and I would keep him around because he's a high option and he gives us massive pressing, which is very important. Number 2, Son, who has been used as a striker, especially a lot last season, because he couldn't play on the left. I know there's a lot of arguments saying you should push him to the left again, which I don't agree with either. We need a long-term replacement for Son, and whether that's as a striker position or a left winger position, which again we should be prioritising as well. But also we lost Harry Kane and we still haven't replaced Harry Kane. So there's another reason on top of the 2 I just said why it's the most important position to strengthen. And don't forget, we play with Ange's system, despite my opinions on Ange himself and the tactics. Let's just put that aside for a sec. Relies on the forwards scoring the goals. So you need, for me, a 25 goals a season striker right now. And Isak, for me, is Premier League proven. He's got pace, he's got power, he's got a bit of height as well in him. He would walk into our team in a heartbeat. I know he's got his injury issues, but if we look at the market, I'm not that keen on Toney. Watkins would be one I'd consider, but Villa ain't gonna let him go. I think Isak's more realistic, as crazy as that sounds. And I know Harry messaged me saying about Osimhen. Oh, you can say Osimhen, but no, I'm not gonna say Osimhen. For me, it's Isak. And I drop like 150 million profits or something like that, some crazy money on him, because you sign Isak, you probably sort your goals out for the next 5 to 8 years, and possibly even 10. And for me, that would be a statement signing as well. So me, Isak, 100%, that's a striker I'd go for. It probably sounds very unrealistic on this video, but yeah, and Hasper out.
Yes, Harry, how you going, mate? Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good day. And I'm at work in a minute, but I just thought could I have a quick time to say who Spurs should be signing for your side. Brian Brobbey from Ajax. He's quick, he's pacey, he's strong, and he's a young lad, which I think is destined for greater things. The Dutch international scored 31 goals in 62 games, so he's a goal-a-game guy. And his strongest point, he's quick, he's pacey, he scores goals at either foot, and I think he'll be a fantastic signing for you. For me, for Tottenham long term, Brian Brobbey is that guy from Ajax, and I think you can get for around about 30 to 40 million quid, so go and get him, mate. Go and get him.
Hi everyone, Luke here at Parlaying Podcast. Now, who should Spurs sign as a striker this summer? It's a really interesting question, because when you lose your best striker of all time, how do you replace him? How do you get somebody else in? And there isn't anybody out there in reality. He's as good as a prime Karim Benzema, for example. And so you've got to then look at, what type of player do we require in that position? We've seen Son try and play in that position, who does okay, but he's much better out wide. We've seen Richarlison try and play in that position, and he's just not good enough in my eyes. So what we need is somebody who's the same stature as in build as Harry Kane, and we need someone strong who's able to then play in the wingers and so on. Two options out there. There's either Ivan Toney, who is the obvious choice, the easy choice to make, or there's Ciro Guirassy from Stuttgart. Now, it looked like he was going to move to Dortmund. That's now on hold. He's probably the best option, in my opinion. 6'2", I believe, and scored an absolute bagful of goals last season for Stuttgart. It's really from there, it's kind of, how do we get a player like that and put them into the team? Well, I think in terms of height, in terms of presence in the box, I think he would be sensational. Ivan Toney is obviously a Premier League proven player, so make of it what you will. The fees, I don't think, would be too dissimilar. 40 probably million for Guirassy, probably a little bit more for Ivan Toney on the basis that he's English and just played in the Euros. The thing for me is, Toney had his chance at Brentford in the last half of the season to really stamp his ground and make a move. And I just don't know if his attitude problems have secured that for him or not. But I'd be keen to know everybody else's thoughts on those two options that we have. But anytime, and come and check us out, Parlaying Podcast.
Afternoon from around the grounds here at the Footy Shirt Hub. I've been given the task to tell you a striker I feel Spurs should go out and sign this summer. He's currently with the England squad, plays for Brentford, scored that amazing no-look penalty the other night, and that is Ivan Toney. He's going to cost a lot of money, 40-50 million. I think rumours that he's going to cost teams, but for me, I think he'd complete Spurs. Since losing Harry Kane, there's that void there. Obviously, Son tried to fill it, but for me, I think his position's better out coming off the left, and I think Toney would really fit in well. Works hard and knows where the net is. Getting a striker like that who knows where the net is, I think it's that difference to getting a top fourth. So for me, I think Ivan Toney would fit the bill really nicely. And from the signings we're making, obviously the two young lads coming in this summer, I think we're really starting to build some. Obviously, build on last season with Toney in there. I think it'd really come together nicely. Obviously, the defence has started to come together with Van de Ven, who's been a massive difference. But get Toney this summer for me would be absolutely amazing. And he plays his football in the Premier League, so he knows what it's about. He's got that swagger, he's got that confidence. Obviously, he's put all the bad stuff behind him with the betting scandal. That's all behind him. But for me, Ivan Toney, go out and get him. Ivan Toney for Spurs. Cheers from around the grounds.
Hi Harry, Douglas from the Dugout Football channel and the Totally Premier League podcast. Thank you very much for asking me to be a part of this video. Which striker should Spurs go out and sign? And should they spend big and why? Well, I'm going to give you three options, okay? I'm going to give you three options. So this is what I would do. And if you were to spend big, I know the one you would want to probably do as well. And maybe one closer to home. So my first one is Kyogo Furuhashi at Celtic. I actually think, I know that the jump from the Scottish Premiership to the Premier League is really, really big, but Kyogo Furuhashi's best form for Celtic actually came under Ange Postecoglou. So that would be a tried and tested one for me. I think if you were to, I think that would be about 10, 15 million as well. So I don't think that would be too much money. If you want to spend big in the Premier League, I would say Ivan Toney. Now, I think Ivan Toney is one that's interesting a lot of people. I don't think he's going to be at Brentford by the start of the season. I'd be very, very surprised if he was. And I think if you need goals from a set piece taker, Ivan Toney's your man. Penalties, free kicks, he's the one. But I think if you really, really want a really decent out-and-out striker to spend very, very big money on, it's got to be Jonathan David for me, for Leo. I think he's a fantastic player, and I think he would improve Spurs no end. So there you go. My three options are Kyogo Furuhashi from Celtic, because obviously Ange knows him well. Ivan Toney, if you want a set-piece taker for free kicks and penalty kicks. And the last one is Jonathan David from Leo. But thank you very much for asking me to be a part of your video, Harry. And good luck for the season ahead. Thank you.
Hi there guys, Callum from Park Lane Podcast here. So H has once again asked me what my thoughts are for different bits for Spurs this season. So do Spurs need a striker? Definitely. Is there many candidates out there that I would like? Well, it's more like hopes, to be honest. If I could get an Isak, if I could get a Guirassy, if I could get someone like Haaland, then I know I'd love it. Do I think Spurs would get them? Definitely not. So the options that I'd probably go for are either Ivan Toney or Jonathan David from Lille. You'd probably be looking for both of them between roughly 30 million to 60 million each. I definitely think Spurs need one. If you go for Toney, you've got your out-and-out number 9. I don't particularly like him, but he's had a good Euros. He does tick all the boxes, so he could be an option to us. But on the other hand, if you get Jonathan David, you've got a versatile forward to cover all the front line. Realistically, if you was a Spurs fan, you'd hope that you could get both of them. But you know that Daniel Levy don't work that way. So if I had my choice, I'd probably go for Jonathan David. My dream striker would be Victor Guirassy from Sporting Lisbon. I think class player. Would Levy ever spend the money? Not a chance.
Scarf. Right, you asked me what striker do I think Spurs should sign. Now, obviously, you're in Europe, so that'll be very easy to attract more players. For me, I know his attitude stinks, but I just think Ivan Toney would be a perfect signing for Spurs. But I would also like to throw in an honourable mention to Dusan Vlahovic for Juventus, because they do need to sell. So maybe that could be something on the cards. I feel like him and Maddison and the wingers of Spurs, especially someone like Huminton, would link up very well. But yeah, for me, Ivan Toney would be my first choice for Spurs. But, you know, I don't really want you to get a good striker because I don't like us.